Welcome in to the Junior and Seniors Nothing But Sports Podcast. I'm Mike, and good old Mike Sr., the elder, will be joining us on the predictions episode for week 1, and we will be shooting that in a couple of days here before we get this week 1 season started. So I just wanted to do a quick video of my reactions to all of the week 0 games, and I'm gonna do what happened first last, the Florida State game. That was the biggest game of the day. I will do my reaction to that last because I want to get to these other games first. Starting off, I just want to say football is back. College football is back. I did not think that, or I knew college football would be good. We would have some good games here and there. But I have to say this was likely the greatest week 0 ever, which it's not saying too much because week 0 really for the last 5 or 6 years hasn't been as climactic as this one was. I've really been looking forward to this for really the last 2 months, as I am every week 0, but especially this one, not just for the Florida State game, but for the other games that were penciled in because of the spreads that most of these games were. They were more than 2 to 3 touchdown favorites, and I just didn't believe that we would have that. Whether I was right or wrong about who would win, I did not think we would see a bunch of blowouts in these first couple of games. So, and I was right about that. But yeah, this was definitely the greatest week 0 ever. There were 7 games on the slate. I did not see the Hawaii-Delaware State game, mostly because really Hawaii games are only on Spectrum Sports or whatever the case. And, even if you have Spectrum, for some plans, they don't even give you the sports channel. My Spectrum plan that comes with my apartment, for some reason, doesn't give me any sports channels. So, that sucks, but that's why I have other avenues to make sure I'm watching every single game. But for Hawaii games, I just wish they would show them. I know it's late night, early into the morning for pretty much all their games at home. But I'm sure ESPN could work something out to get these games on, even if it is late. And a lot of people won't probably stay up to watch. I'll watch, and I'm sure a lot of college football fans will watch, especially on Saturday night. Or move their games if you can try to get them a little earlier. Move them to a Thursday night or Friday night game, so at least they're playing on or even Wednesday maybe. So that way they're the only game on, and they can get some good exposure. But that was the only game I didn't see. I know Hawaii won. I don't know the score. I'll have to go and look. I did pick them to win. The spread was like 40.5. I didn't think they would cover, and I don't believe that they did cover. I would have to go back and look, but Hawaii did win. I went 5-2 overall in my picks from the other day. The only picks that I got wrong were the Florida State pick and the North Alabama pick, I believe. The only 2 picks I got wrong. I think much like other people have done thus far, as far as the reactions to the Florida State game, I'm not going to sit here every week and complain and whine and make excuses for why I was wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's what it is. The team that I'm picking to win every week, or my dad picks every week, or anyone else who ends up coming on the podcast, if you pick a team to win and you're firm in your belief in why they're going to win, it's all right to be wrong. It is what it is. There's 2 teams that are going to play, and they're either going to win or they're going to lose. But I think it's the excuses and it's the backtracking that a lot of people do, especially the pundits on the ESPN and Fox networks and so on and so forth, that do a lot of kowtowing and whatnot, because they get something wrong, and then as soon as they get it wrong, they now want to demonize their wrong pick and demonize the other team for not doing what they thought they were going to do. And I don't think that's a fair assessment. So I'm always about authenticity. And again, saying what you feel. If you feel a certain way, just say it and stand on it. Don't go back on what you said. And I've already seen a couple of people do that. As soon as the Florida State team loses, now all of a sudden they're not good and they're going to be in trouble now. Everybody relax. Calm down. We have to stop being dramatic. I understand that's part of television, but that's not what I'm about. I'm going to be dramatic in certain situations, but week 0 wasn't one of them, and I'll get to that later on. But let's get through these first couple of games. Like I said, Hawaii game was really interesting as far as them winning. Like I said, I'm going to try and look up the final score of this game so that way I can see if I was right and my predictions. We're gonna find out right now. Okay, so the final score was 35-14. So 21-point difference. They look, they pretty much were in control of the game. Again, 40 points was way too much. So again, if you're listening to this podcast and you were betting, you might have went. I need to go look back at all the spreads, but there's a possible chance you could have went undefeated. So I'm just saying, as far as me picking games straight up, I like to think I'll always be more right than I am wrong, because unlike most of these guys, I actually watch these games. But as far as betting goes, I don't want to give it away too early. It's only week 0, but if that was any indication, y'all might need to stick around and start placing a couple of these little minor bets. But yeah, so definitely Hawaii took care of business. No surprise there. Delaware State had that little issue with the flights and the bus and all those things, and they haven't really been a good program for a while, so you expect Hawaii to win that game at home. Now, the next game I want to get to was the only blowout, really, other than that one. The only real blowout of the entire weekend was the North Alabama and Southeast Missouri game. Southeast Missouri, they were good. This was a good game, really, for the majority of it, pretty much until they got to the fourth quarter, and Southeast Missouri just kind of ran them over in the end. But it was a good game for 80% of it. It got out of hand, especially with their backup quarterback who came in, and it looked like North Alabama was going to be able to hold them down, but they were able to find a way with their backup in to sort of run them down and wear them out. And they get the win. So a good win to start the season for Southeast Missouri. And again, really the only blowout other than the Hawaii game. So we went 5 for 7. But again, 95% of the people probably didn't even see that Hawaii game. So you really can probably count it as 6 almost. But yeah, it was a stellar weekend. And that was the lone dark spot, if there was one, of the entire weekend. The next game I want to talk about is McNeese State and Tarleton State down there in Stephenville, Texas. Man, I get so pumped up and excited for all of my Louisiana schools, because that's where I'm from, and I carry that no matter what sport it is, whether I watch it or not. If they're on, I'm rooting. I'm rooting for them all the way. So McNeese State broke my heart this weekend. I was devastated. Me and my pops were watching, and they get down to, for the most part, they turned the ball over early. They couldn't sustain any drives, and any drive, maybe a drive or two that they tried to sustain, they turned the ball over there. So there was a lot of sloppiness, and they didn't look very cohesive early on. But the young man, I forget his name, the quarterback for McNeese State, was also the quarterback for the Montana Grizzly team that got all the way to the FCS championship game against South Dakota State. So this man has been to a couple of different schools, but he took Montana to a championship game. So I was excited to see what he could do, and like I said, he really didn't do much of anything in the entirety of the game. It was surprising that he couldn't get it going early, but I get it. New team, new style, new regime. So they started off a little slow, and it looked like Tarleton State was clicking on all cylinders. They ran the ball well. They were able to throw it a little bit down the field. It looked like this game was going to get ugly, and then their quarterback goes down. And now that has nothing to do with the offense of McNeese State. They eventually got it going. But Tarleton, their offense was not the same, and that McNeese defense ate them up. And so they get the ball back, have a chance to get down the field, kick a field goal, and they missed it. And me and my pops were talking about this to where they were in a position to, for me, go get the touchdown down in the red zone. They had plenty of time. They wasted a good chunk of seconds, probably about 20 seconds, once they got down there trying to get in position and run a play in the hurry-up fashion, and they just could not find a way to do it. And we were talking about it, and I'm saying, listen, the field goal is fine. It'll get you to where you may want to go towards the end of the game, but at the end of the day, your object is to win. And if you have a chance to win the game, go win the football game. Don't try to do what I actually saw a couple times in a couple of these week 0 games. Don't do the thing where maybe we should leave enough time. We don't want to leave enough time on the clock, or should we kick a field goal or try to go for the touchdown? Go for the touchdown. Sean Payton said this better than anybody. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but go for the touchdown. Go for the win. If there's no other option than to kick a field goal or punt or whatever, do that. But if you have an opportunity that's staring you in the face and you don't capitalize on it, you get missed field goals, you get blocks, you get false start penalties, all kinds of stuff. And the clock management, that's on the coaching staff. I'm disappointed because I thought they would be better prepared, but they weren't. And like I said, when you're not prepared and you're not ready to play, especially in a big moment like that, you're going to pay for it. And they had a chance to tie the game and go to overtime, but they also had a chance to win the game. It was there. They were in the red zone. They had opportunities. They get a penalty. Then they line up, go for the field goal, and it gets blocked. Or it doesn't get blocked, but he just misses it. So a complete botch by the McNeese State Cowboys. They only had one win last year, and that was because of a forfeit. So it might be a long time before they get a victory. And I hate to see that, because this was a top 25 caliber FCS program in Tarleton State. And they had a chance to go on the road, McNeese did, and get a huge win for them. And they couldn't do it. So, because of, bad clock management and then special teams. So, hopefully they can bounce back. But that was one of those mistakes at the end of the game, that if you want to be one of those teams to get to an FCS championship, you can't make plays like that. You cannot have penalties like that, and you have to have better time and clock management than what happened at the end of that game. But Tarleton State wins. Really good game, a nice, valiant comeback, but they survived. And I believe I picked Tarleton to win, if I'm not mistaken. So, again, we do good on that. Even though I wanted McNeese State to get the W, I was right on my pick, so great for me. The next game that we're going to do, how about the HBCU kickoff? FAMU taking on Norfolk State. Now, this was a 1-point game, and to be quite honest with you, I thought FAMU would win. I thought they would win in a good game that kind of got out of hand late. This game was razor thin, and it came down to a missed 2-point conversion that would have won the game and they missed it. Now, me and my pops, we were also, we were watching this game, and, I forget the guy's name, the announcer. He does mostly all of the HBCU games. And he's telling me, or he's saying about how once they got down to about the 2-yard line, when they decided to go for 2, because I believe there was a penalty of some sort. So instead of kicking the field goal, they say, you know what, let's just go for the win here. And after you see the replay, one of the guys, I believe, on for Norfolk, is you can see him trying to really hype up the crowd and get them going. And then they run a play that looks like some sort of RPO where he might have been able to hand it off or decide to go. So he decided to not hand it off and go and pull it, and he just didn't get it. So the guy was saying that, maybe, he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have tried to hype up the crowd because they couldn't hear, and that messed the play up. And my father agreed. And for me, I understand what they were trying to say, but if that was the play that they were going with, it didn't work. And no matter if crowd noise was going to help that. Now, if you're telling me there was a different play that they had lined up for that 2-point conversion, and then you could have said, yes, that did mess it up, I understand. But that looked like the play that they wanted to run, that RPO zone run. That looked like the play. He just was either going to hand it off to the running back, go straight up the middle, or pull it out, which he did, and try to go to the end zone. It didn't work. If he would have handed it off, it would have went nowhere. And it didn't go anywhere when he tried to pull it. So that play was just not going to work. So in my opinion, that had nothing to do with the fact that they didn't get it. But like I said, if that wasn't the planned run, I could see that. But again, you're at the 2-yard line. It's not that complicated of a play to come up with to get in the end zone. You're either going to get in or you're not. There's not much room to make a bunch of crazy design plays out there. So, and I actually didn't mind the RPO zone play that they ran, because like I said, you can either hand it off, or if it's not there, try to pull it and see if you can get it. Neither option was going to work in that instance because of how the defense was ready for it, because they were obviously ready for that play. So I get the whole, not hyping up players and or not hyping up the fans and all that type of stuff when you're trying to get in the end zone. I get that. I'm not a big fan of players hyping up their own people when they're on offense. When you're on defense, do whatever you want. But when you're on offense, you need to hear, especially if you're at home. They weren't, but the point is, so I agree from the aspect of he shouldn't have been trying to hype his own fans up for them on offense. That was kind of weird, but at the end of the day, the play just looked like it didn't work. And I think that if it would have worked, they wouldn't have said anything about it. It's just the fact that the defense was ready for what they were trying to run, and it didn't work out. But a great game. Norfolk came out on fire. They did not look scared. They've been a down program for a while. FAMU's breaking a new coach. They just won the HBCU National Championship game. They're coming in, highly ranked in the FCS. And Norfolk came out early. They threw a nice pass. They had a beautiful run. They were able to move the football. And their defense was playing very well. But the thing is, when you play teams like that, and we'll get to a team like Florida State that's higher ranked than you, that's a bit more talented, that people believe is just flat out better, it's upon you to put your foot on the gas and continue to beat them the way you've been beating them. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't do that, but FAMU woke up eventually, and they didn't put enough points on the board. They miss a field goal, then you get back, you go for 2, you don't get it, and you end up losing by a point. Now, I would have liked for them to just kick the field goal. I get going for 2, but when you're trying to beat a team like FAMU, take it to overtime. You held them to 24 points all game. They weren't just running up and down the field on you. Go to overtime, take your chances. If you gotta exchange 2-point conversions, do that, because that's what you were trying to do anyway. So I don't fault them for going for the win. I understand that. They still had time on the clock, but I understand that aspect. I'm not blaming them for going for it. I'm not even blaming them for the play call. But at the time, I was looking at it like, you were going to kick the field goal, you got the penalty. To be at the 2-yard line, so you decide, hey, let's just go for it. That's the same thing kind of Dan Campbell did last year against the Cowboys, where they kept getting penalties down there, and they kept going for it instead of just kicking the extra point. So you get burned, but sometimes, even though if you get screwed or you get robbed, if you get a second chance, a third, or even a fourth chance at life, and you keep doing the same thing, what do you think is going to happen? You know, and in both those cases, the wrong thing happened. So, like you said, if they wouldn't have got no penalty, if they would have just came out and said, we're just going to go for it, regardless, and that's our play, no problem. But when you have a chance to kick a field goal and you get an opportunity to do it, I get the call, but don't try to go with your first mind and just, go to overtime and play more football. But no, they played an excellent game. And I just thought that ending, much like the McNeese State ending, was just a mishap. And two teams that should have won have been coming out on the other end up losing their first game because of, just some mistakes. So hopefully they will learn from it. As for FAMU, I think they are going to be very confident going into the year. They can win their division and get to possibly another HBCU national championship game. So, again, they got out of there by a thin margin, but a win is a win nonetheless. The next game, we're down to 3, and these are all FBS games, and these were 3 of the wildest games in FBS to start. And I'm telling you guys, if these games are any indication of what this year is going to be like, I promise you guys, the 2007 college football season is always the best to me since I've been alive. I don't think there's too many seasons that can beat that year. And that was also the year that LSU won, so of course, whatever. But this year has an opportunity with the new expanded playoff, new teams and new conferences, the pretty much the elimination of the Pac-12. We're going to see, quite possibly, if not the second greatest, we're going to end up debating probably in the next 5 years, was this one of the greatest seasons in college football history? Now, in order for those things to happen, the games that are highly ranked, the games that are highly touted, the games that we all know are coming, they have to live up to the billing. We can't see a bunch of blowouts and teams going on the road and getting their teeth kicked in. We need to see great games, or at least good games to some extent. That's the only way it can happen. And upsets like we had, on Saturday, we need more of those. So we get to New Mexico and Montana State. This was a fun game, man. The Florida State game was fun because of the stakes, because it's 2 FBS teams fighting it out in conference. But this Montana State and New Mexico game, we're sitting here watching this. We're watching the high school football games they have on. And I told my dad this. I said, New Mexico's on a roll right now. But if they do not put Montana State away, Montana State will come back. They are not afraid of New Mexico. They don't care if they're an FBS program. Montana State, the last 5 years, has been a perennial FCS playoff team. They got to the championship a couple years ago. They got knocked down by SD State. North Dakota State has been a thorn on their side the last couple of years. So they've had some trouble getting to to that ultimate goal. But they've been in it. So that's why I picked New Mexico to win, even though they're a 14.5 point favorite, I believe. I was kind of, sketchy on the spread, but I did pick them to win. And I just thought that they're a better football team. Malo, the quarterback, is a dual threat dynamic guy, and they're going to run the football. That's what they love to do. They don't care about who they're playing. They're going to run the football. They're going to be physical up in the trenches, and they're going to push you around. And much like Michigan, they're going to wear you down until the fourth quarter comes, and then they can hit you with a big blow. New Mexico had a lot of opportunities. They missed the field goal. It looked like there was a a sandstorm almost for a while there in the second half. I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was a tornado. I thought it was an earthquake at one point. But the wind was blowing massively. But they ended up missing a field goal. I think they missed 2, if I'm not mistaken. It was either 1 or 2. They drop a pass on 3rd down, I believe, that would have likely given them the game. They had some penalties, some crucial penalties, that allowed drives to continue for Montana State. But ultimately, this came down to Montana State starting off slow and 2 bizarre scoop and score touchdowns for New Mexico that I don't think they've ever had that happen in their history. So they get 2 freak scoop and score touchdowns, which give them the 14 points. But if you take away that, and we were saying that, me and my dad, we were saying, New Mexico pretty much was running what they wanted, but if you take away those 14 points, they only had 17. So it's not like they were scoring. They were moving the football, but they weren't putting the ball in the end zone as much as the score would have you believe. They had 2 scoop and score touchdowns, which, I mean, you can count on one hand how many times that happens in a season, let alone a game. So they got down and they made the plays that were necessary. Instead of trying to tie the game, they say, no, we're going for the win. And that's what they did. They get the penalty late down at the goal line, and a beautiful pass into the end zone that gets them a touchdown and wins them the game. I thought they would win. It was a great game. I was worried early because I was like, man, I might have just been completely wrong about New Mexico. They've got a bunch of transfers, a bunch of new guys coming in. How would they gel? But again, when you get 14 points just off your defense, your offense gets a lot of confidence. And that trick play, that fake run that they had to score a touchdown, I've seen that play at least 45 times. Nobody saw that coming on the defense for Montana State. Nobody. So again, you could chalk up 21 points to just, I don't want to say magic, but 21 of the points they had were just, 2 of them were just, again, 2 freak scoop and score plays, and then you get a beautiful play that the defense did not see at all until it was too late. But other than that, their offense moved the ball up and down the field, but they didn't really score any points. So that's why I was really in the second half like, okay, here comes Montana State. They get a turnover on downs, and here they come. And again, when you make as many mistakes as New Mexico did late, that's a sign of inexperience. That's a sign of guys not having been playing together for too long. And when you have 90% of your roster looking like transfer city, and you can get good quickly with that, but you can't win championships with that. It hasn't worked. Not yet, anyway. So they had to stomach that. And it really had them at a disadvantage because they just looked like in the second half, once Montana State started wearing them down, it just looked like they weren't ready to play. They had a lot of miscues. They just looked like they were not in a position to take care of what they need to take care of, and hence why they lose. So, great game though. Great comeback. The first FCS win over an FBS school this year. I reckon there will be more to come. I think this is just the beginning. But I think there's going to be a lot more where that came from this year. And I love it, man. I love the FCS. Anytime I get a chance to watch the FCS games, I'm always going to be for that because the games are always excellent. More oftentimes than not, the games are FCS wise are better than the FBS games. So I was very excited to watch that game. The next game was the game between SMU and Nevada. And this was a game that if you're Nevada, you're going to, again, much like New Mexico, at home, you're going to end up having nightmares. They had this game in control. SMU looked out of sorts. Preston Stone, his first pass was an interception. They were turning the ball over left and right. Their offense is usually high-powered. They're known for going up and down the field, throwing the ball all over the lot. They could not get anything going until the fourth quarter happened. Nevada could not muster up a drive or two. That's all they needed, was a drive or two to get the job done, and they could not do it. And it sucks because, again, they had this game in control. Their defense was getting after it. Their cornerbacks were sticking to these wide receivers for SMU. R.J. Maryland, the player for SMU, he torched them pretty much all game. But other than that, they had no answers. So it's going to be a tough year, I feel, for Nevada. Again, SMU, a lot of people had them not winning the ACC, but had them challenging. And they can still do it since, they went on the road, won this game. So it's not like they can't still challenge. But, again, it's week 0, so they have plenty of time. They have some bye weeks. They have some opportunities to get strong. But their schedule, you've got to face teams like Florida State. And, again, taking away the fact that they just lost as well, that's still going to be a high-quality game. When you got Florida State coming into Dallas for that game. So if you want to compete, that's a game you could very well win based off what I just seen from Florida State. But that's a game you can win. So, I think that's what you want. You want the opportunity to be able to win games when it matters. And at the end of the day, they found a way to win, and that's what you get. So congratulations to SMU for being able to get the job done. And we'll see what they do and if they can compete for an ACC title. I would hope so, but we shall see. The final game. Man. I'm going to save that for another quick little podcast where I'll just talk about that game in particular because I have a lot to say and a lot coming up as far as the next podcasts come up. So I'm going to save that for the next podcast where I will specifically talk about that game and the ramifications of that game. But those are my thoughts on pretty much all the other games. A great first week of college football. And again, if this is any indication on what we have to come, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to contain myself because we were jumping up and down, making all kinds of noise with just those games. So, and just imagine the big, huge games we're going to have every week with this conference realignment and new playoff system. Guys, I think we're going to be in, again, for quite possibly one of the greatest seasons in college football history. So I will be back with the next podcast as I discuss and break down that Florida State game. But for now, that's all. Thank you guys for listening in.